Thank you very much, Presiding Officer. It's quite interesting to find that we can make such, actually, on the broad sweep of policy, common cause with our colleagues to the left, and I very much welcome that. I looked at the amendment and I thought to myself, I could see words in it that the government might pick at and so on and so forth. But I think when we put the people of Scotland who have the category of problems that we're debating today into the mix, it's right and proper that we try and build some consensus. And I want to try and do that, if I may. Perhaps one of the things that we should think about is labels. We've got quite a lot of labels that have been kicking around in the debate that we've used. We talk about young people, we talk about disabled people, and we haven't, funnily enough, talked about old people. I speak as the third oldest person in the debate today. I'll be 70 next year, although someone said to me quite recently, but a very young 70. So maybe I'm both young and old simultaneously. I simply don't know. But there are a number of groups we haven't talked about. Richard Stevenson and my colleague Nigel Dawn did talk about people who suffer degrees of mental ill health, and I think Siobhan McMahon also made reference to that. And I think we've got to make sure that when we look at people with mental health, when we look at people who are recovering from addictions, when we look at people who've come out of the criminal justice system, when we look at people who've got particular literacy and numeracy problems, when we look at people who, for whatever reason, are not comfortable with, perhaps through disability, perhaps through a lack of access with modern technology, we've got a wide range of different issues. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. We're not talking about categories. We're actually talking about individuals. We're going to solve the problems that face us in this area of public policy, one person at a time. And with each person, we have to make sure that we develop what is appropriate for them to help them. Work is an important part of most people's lives, but not because it provides economic security, although it has to do that, but because it puts in the mind of people who work a value. It says, you are valued, you are making a contribution. I think work has a purpose, but that purpose is not to build a stronger economy. That purpose is not to increase taxation. That is to help the individuals. It's about making sure that they have that sense of purpose. And people who have been out of work for some considerable time and bring to the issue of re-engaging with work or engaging with work for the first time have all sorts of issues that they have in their own mind and that they may create in the minds of others that we have to make sure that we deal with. When we're looking at, for example, people with mental ill health, somehow, despite the fact that 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men will suffer some degree of mental ill health at some time in their life, it is somehow seen as a tiny little minority issue that doesn't affect us. And whenever you've had, as people will do from time to time, mental ill health, you're stuck with a label for the rest of your life. Employers will get a great deal out of drawing people in with the wide range of issues that I've delineated by having people that can contribute from their experience, adverse it may be, to improve the operation of workplaces. Now, the presiding officer at an early stage in the debate said that this would be a debate where there would be some room for invention, and I'm going to take him up on his word. I, as an older person, among others, would suggest that perhaps we're missing a trick in relation to how we use older people to bring in younger people with less experience of work. As older people reach the end of their working career, and for many through choice rather than necessity, that is later than it might have been, we have a core of people here can be the mentors of the new, who actually might wish to work fewer hours, but might feel there is a good social purpose in bringing in people who've got particular barriers to getting into the world of work that they, with their experience, might help. And I wonder if it's time that we collectively turned our mind to how we might actually make that work. Because as one gets older, one may wish to work fewer hours. My father, when he was 65 as a GP, gave up working nights. When he was 70, he gave up working weekends. So from the age of 70, he started to work what he thought was a normal working week. Now, he was a bit different from the generality, but the pattern was one that we see increasingly, people reducing their workload. That is an opportunity to get people into the engagement with people, giving them that sense of worth, giving them a tiny little skill, perhaps in the first place, that enables them to get in through the front door and become depended on. Because there's nothing gives people more sense of worth than the idea that what they are doing is something that is necessary to support other people with much greater experience and much greater skills. And the old lags, like myself and like others, perhaps might be the key to unlocking that. Now, another thing that we've talked about, which is quite relevant in my area of the country, is gender gaps. And we've talked about how there is a huge skew, very few women going into many of the traditional male-dominated industries. I very much welcome the fact that when I go to what is now the North East College, previously Banff and Buchan College, on the oil engineering courses, there's always a decent number of women. Not yet enough, presiding officer, but a decent number of women who can see a career ahead of them that is rewarding intellectually, rewarding economically, and will engage the mental faculties of people. And I very much welcome that. But that pattern is not repeated over enough of Scotland. It isn't something that we're seeing women challenging men for the places in what is a traditional male industry. I spent 30 years of my life in information technology, and when I started, the number of men and women doing the technical jobs was roughly equivalent, which was quite interesting. And, of course, the reason for that is nobody knew about computers, and it was a bit of an illegitimate thing. I'm talking the 1960s when I started in it. And so, therefore, the men didn't automatically take it over. Things have gone downhill since then. And it's now an industry where men dominate once again. So I think we've got to try and find new models and new ways of mentoring people, including women, including people with mental ill health, and sideways reference a little bit by Richard Simpson, people who have the ability to recover from addictions and the desire to do so. That means helping companies who are prepared to make that effort, helping companies who are going to support ex-offenders who have, hopefully, in the prison service, improved literacy and numeracy. They now need to add employment to their portfolio. And, presiding officer, I think that what we've got before us in a debate today is one where a very large amount of agreement. I think the Labour amendment, which talks about wider reforms of employment policy to deliver a more socially just Scotland, is spot on. It actually captures the whole point of this. The amendment also talks about industrial injury. We've moved on a great deal from 1836, when my great-great-grandfather died as a serf in the coal mining industry. So low down the pecking order, there is no record of his death. Presiding officer, we can make progress. This debate ought to be, and hopefully is, a contribution to an ongoing debate on how we do that.